The Real Housewives Kyle Richards and Dorit Kemsley stood shoulder to shoulder through some of Beverly Hills' most explosive moments. They defended one another during cast battles, laughed together on lavish vacations, and often presented themselves as trusted confidants both on and off camera. Meanwhile, Mauricio Umansky wasn't simply Kyle's husband. He had become one of the defining faces of the franchise itself, a successful real estate mogul whose marriage to Kyle helped create one of reality television's most recognizable families. So when viewers began watching Dorit spending time with Mauricio after his separation from Kyle, the internet erupted with questions. Was it simply two people supporting each other through similar life experiences? Was an innocent friendship, or had years of changing loyalties quietly transformed the social landscape of Beverly Hills into something no one saw coming? What makes this story so fascinating isn't that people disagree. It's that nearly every fan seems to be watching the exact same scenes and reaching completely different conclusions. And that's where this story truly begins. Because behind every dramatic reunion, every uncomfortable dinner party, and every emotional confessional lies a much larger question. How did one of Beverly Hills' strongest friendships deteriorate into one of its most talked about rivalries? To answer that, we have to go back, not to the latest season, but to the foundation upon which this entire empire was built. For more than a decade, Kyle Richards occupied a unique position inside the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. She wasn't simply another cast member. She represented continuity. From the series premiere, viewers watched her navigate family relationships, raise 4 daughters, balance Hollywood history with modern celebrity, and maintain what many believed was one of reality television's strongest marriages. Her relationship with Mauricio became central to that image. While many housewives' storylines revolved around public divorces, lawsuits, betrayals, and personal scandals, Kyle and Mauricio often appeared to offer something different, a marriage that looked stable despite the pressures of fame. Their family vacations, holiday celebrations, and everyday interactions became recurring reminders of that stability. Whether the cameras followed them through Beverly Hills, Aspen, or international vacations, they projected an image that many fans admired. But reality television has always existed in a complicated space. Audiences see edited moments. They hear confessionals filmed months later. They watch emotional conversations carefully selected from hundreds of hours of footage. And sometimes what appears solid on television is already changing behind the scenes. That became painfully clear in July 2023. Kyle Richards and Mauricio Umansky announced they had separated after nearly 3 decades together. The announcement shocked longtime viewers because their relationship had become one of the franchise's defining pillars. Although both emphasized they remained committed parents and continued supporting one another, the separation inevitably changed the dynamics surrounding everyone connected to them. Every friendship suddenly carried new sensitivity. Every interaction attracted fresh scrutiny. Every public appearance became headline material. And nowhere was that scrutiny greater than within the cast itself. Because the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills has never simply documented friendships. It documents shifting alliances. Every season introduces new personalities, evolving relationships, and changing loyalties. Someone who stood beside you one season may confront you the next. Friends become rivals. Former enemies become allies. That's part of what has kept the franchise relevant for so many years. But few expected one of those changing relationships to involve Dorit Kemsley. When Dorit first joined the series, she and Kyle gradually developed what appeared to be one of the show's strongest friendships. Their families socialized together. Their husbands became friends. Their children spent time together. Viewers watched birthdays, dinners, vacations, and countless celebrations that reinforced the impression these relationships extended beyond filming schedules. They defended one another during major conflicts. When tensions divided the group, Kyle and Dorit often found themselves standing together. That loyalty became part of their public identities. Fans began referring to them as genuine friends rather than reality television acquaintances, which is exactly why the eventual breakdown attracted so much attention. Friendships rarely collapse overnight. More often, small disappointments accumulate quietly. A missed phone call, an unanswered text, different priorities, changing circumstances. Eventually, those individual moments become impossible to ignore. Several seasons into the franchise, viewers began noticing subtle changes. The warmth remained. The laughter was still there. But beneath the surface, conversations occasionally carried a different tone. Disagreements lingered longer. Misunderstandings became harder to resolve. Personal struggles increasingly influenced how each woman interpreted the other's actions. At the same time, both families were facing enormous challenges. Dorit and PK Kemsley experienced well-documented difficulties in their marriage, while also dealing with public attention surrounding their family life. Kyle, meanwhile, faced growing speculation about changes within her own marriage to Mauricio long before their separation became public. Neither situation unfolded under ordinary circumstances. Every emotional conversation happened while cameras rolled. Every difficult moment became entertainment for millions of viewers. Every disagreement generated thousands of online opinions within minutes of airing. That level of exposure changes people. It changes friendships. And sometimes it changes what trust looks like. As season 15 approached, Bravo promotional material focused heavily on these evolving relationships. Viewers knew Kyle and Mauricio were navigating life after separation. They knew Dorit and PK were facing significant marital challenges of their own. But promotional trailers introduced something that immediately captured fan attention. Dorit and Mauricio sharing scenes together. The images themselves weren't inherently controversial. Two people discussing life after separation isn't unusual, yet context matters, especially in Beverly Hills, especially among longtime friends, especially when millions of viewers already knew the history connecting everyone involved. Almost immediately, social media divided into competing camps. Some fans argued the interaction demonstrated compassion. Others believed clear boundaries had been crossed. Still others insisted the footage was being emphasized primarily because producers understood exactly how audiences would react. Reality television has always relied on anticipation. A single trailer can generate weeks of speculation before an episode even airs. And in this case, speculation spread faster than facts. Clips circulated across TikTok. YouTube creators analyzed individual facial expressions frame by frame. Instagram comment sections filled with competing theories. Some viewers defended Dorit completely. Others sympathized with Kyle. Many simply wanted to know the full story before reaching conclusions. But one thing became impossible to ignore. The emotional balance inside Beverly Hills had shifted. And as cameras continued capturing every uncomfortable conversation, every icy stare, and every carefully chosen word, it became increasingly clear that this wasn't just another disagreement between cast members. Something much deeper had changed. The question was whether those changes reflected genuine personal betrayal or simply the unavoidable consequences of multiple families navigating painful transitions at exactly the same time. The answer, according to many fans, would unfold one conversation at a time. The trailers had accomplished exactly what Bravo likely hoped they would. Before a single full episode had aired, viewers weren't talking about lavish homes or glamorous vacations. They were dissecting body language, replaying brief conversations, and debating whether years of friendship had quietly unraveled behind closed doors. One particular storyline dominated almost every discussion. Dorit Kemsley spending time with Mauricio Umansky. On the surface, the explanation seemed relatively straightforward. Both Dorit and Mauricio were navigating major changes in their personal lives. Dorit and PK Kemsley had publicly acknowledged difficulties in their marriage, while Kyle and Mauricio were adjusting to life after announcing their separation. Publicly, Dorit suggested that maintaining communication with Mauricio wasn't intended as a betrayal and indicated that Kyle had been aware of or comfortable with some level of interaction. But that explanation did little to calm viewers. Instead, it created even more questions, because longtime fans weren't simply evaluating one lunch or one conversation. They were measuring those moments against more than a decade of shared history. For years, Kyle and Dorit had presented themselves as more than castmates. They vacationed together. Their husbands socialized together. Their children knew one another. The families appeared intertwined in ways that extended beyond filming schedules. That history raised an uncomfortable question many viewers couldn't ignore. When does supporting someone become taking sides? The answer depends entirely on who is asked. Some fans argued that adults should be free to maintain friendships independent of divorce or separation. Others believed there are unwritten boundaries within close friendships that shouldn't be crossed, regardless of circumstances. Neither perspective disappeared. Instead, every new episode added fuel to an already intense debate. As season 15 unfolded, conversations between Kyle and Dorit carried noticeably more tension than audiences had become accustomed to seeing. Simple disagreements no longer felt simple. Small misunderstandings appeared to represent something much larger. There were pauses, carefully chosen words, long silences that often revealed more than the conversations themselves. Years of familiarity made those moments even more striking. When strangers argue, viewers expect conflict. When close friends struggle to communicate, audiences immediately sense the emotional weight behind every sentence. That emotional weight became impossible to ignore. According to the competitor transcript, unnamed production-adjacent sources claim the conflict had been developing long before cameras officially rolled and suggest strategic planning occurred behind the scenes. However, these assertions are presented without publicly verifiable evidence and should be regarded as unconfirmed allegations rather than established fact. What can be observed publicly is something much simpler. Relationships evolve, sometimes dramatically. Reality television captures those changes in ways ordinary friendships never experience. Every disagreement becomes national entertainment. Every misunderstanding generates headlines. Every emotional reaction is replayed thousands of times across social media. That environment doesn't merely document conflict. It often amplifies it. And nowhere was that amplification more visible than online. TikTok creators produced hour-long breakdowns examining every interaction between Kyle, Dorit, and Mauricio. YouTube commentators paused scenes repeatedly, attempting to decode facial expressions and subtle changes in tone. Instagram users flooded comment sections with competing theories about loyalty, friendship, and betrayal. Some insisted Dorit had every right to maintain communication with Mauricio. Others believed the friendship crossed an emotional line regardless of intentions. Meanwhile, another group questioned whether viewers themselves were being guided toward those conclusions through editing choices. Reality television has always balanced authenticity with storytelling. Hundreds of hours of footage become less than an hour of television. Editors determine pacing. Producers decide which conversations receive emphasis. Music influences emotional interpretation. Reaction shots often heighten dramatic impact. That doesn't mean events are fabricated, but it does mean audiences experience carefully constructed narratives rather than raw reality. This distinction became increasingly important as speculation intensified. Rumors began spreading far beyond what had actually appeared on screen. According to the competitor transcript, anonymous sources alleged there were private business collaborations, strategic alliances, and coordinated efforts involving Dorit and Mauricio. However, no publicly verified evidence has confirmed claims of secret commercial partnerships, contractual arrangements, or coordinated plans to undermine Kyle. Those assertions remain speculative. Yet, speculation itself became part of the story. Because once fans begin believing there may be hidden layers behind public events, every interaction acquires new meaning. A casual conversation suddenly appears suspicious. An ordinary lunch becomes headline news. A shared laugh is analyzed as evidence supporting entirely different theories. The internet thrives on unanswered questions. And Beverly Hills had plenty of them. Could Kyle truly separate personal emotions from what viewers watched on television? Was Dorit simply trying to preserve relationships during an incredibly difficult period? Or had years of unresolved frustrations finally reached a breaking point? Those questions became even more complicated because each woman carried her own emotional burden into the season. Kyle wasn't simply processing friendship issues. She was also navigating one of the most significant transitions of her personal life after decades of marriage. Anyone experiencing that level of change might naturally become more sensitive to shifting relationships. Likewise, Dorit faced enormous uncertainty surrounding her own marriage and family life. Public attention only intensified the pressure. Every decision risked criticism. Every appearance invited speculation. Every friendship suddenly required explanation. When multiple people experience profound life changes simultaneously, misunderstandings can multiply rapidly. Intentions become harder to read. Emotions become easier to misinterpret. Even long-standing friendships may struggle under that weight. As episodes continued airing, viewers noticed something else. The conflict no longer seemed confined to private feelings. Other cast members gradually became involved. Questions were asked during group dinners. Sides appeared to form. Old alliances shifted. Conversations that initially seemed unrelated began circling back to the same central issue. Trust. Who deserved it? Who had lost it? And could it ever truly be restored once public doubt entered the equation? Those questions transformed what might have been an ordinary friendship dispute into one of the defining emotional storylines of the season. Because in Beverly Hills, perception often carries as much power as reality, sometimes even more. And while audiences debated every scene from home, another battle was quietly unfolding, one involving public image, media narratives, and the enormous influence that fan opinion now holds over reality television. That battle would ultimately reshape not only how viewers interpreted the season, but how each woman's future within the franchise would be judged. As the season continued unfolding, one reality became impossible to ignore. This was no longer just about who had lunch with whom. The story had evolved into something much larger: public perception. In the world of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, perception often becomes its own currency. A single conversation can dominate entertainment headlines for weeks. A brief exchange at a cast dinner can inspire thousands of social media posts before the episode has even finished airing. Fans don't simply watch the show anymore. They investigate it. Every confessional is analyzed. Every pause is interpreted. Every smile is questioned. And once that process begins, controlling the narrative becomes nearly impossible. Kyle Richards understood that better than almost anyone. Having spent more than a decade as one of the franchise's central figures, she had experienced every phase of reality television fame. She knew how quickly public opinion could shift and how easily private struggles could become national conversations. For years, she had successfully navigated family conflicts, cast shakeups, business ventures, and changing friendships while remaining one of Bravo's most recognizable personalities. But this situation felt different. Unlike previous disagreements, this conflict involved two relationships that had defined much of her adult life. One was the marriage that viewers had watched grow for nearly 30 years. The other was a friendship many fans believed would survive almost anything. When those two worlds unexpectedly intersected, the emotional consequences became far more complicated than an ordinary cast dispute. According to the competitor transcript, unnamed sources allege that Dorit and Mauricio coordinated aspects of their public narratives and developed private strategic understandings. However, the transcript does not provide verifiable evidence for those claims, and there has been no public confirmation supporting allegations of secret agreements or coordinated efforts. These remain speculative assertions rather than established facts. What is publicly visible is how quickly speculation can become part of the entertainment cycle. Within hours of new episodes airing, social media platforms filled with competing interpretations. One clip would circulate on TikTok, another would trend on X. YouTube creators released lengthy analyses examining every interaction frame by frame. Some viewers argued that Dorit appeared calm because she believed she had done nothing wrong. Others interpreted the exact same scenes as signs that years of unresolved resentment had finally surfaced. The remarkable part wasn't that people disagreed. It was how confidently they reached opposite conclusions using the very same footage. That's the unique power and danger of reality television. Unlike scripted dramas, audiences believe they're witnessing real emotions. But unlike real life, viewers see only a carefully edited portion of events. Hours of conversations become minutes. Context is condensed. Timelines are compressed. Emotion is heightened through music, pacing, and storytelling. The result isn't necessarily inaccurate, but it is undeniably selective. And when millions of viewers begin filling in the gaps themselves, speculation often grows faster than facts. That phenomenon became especially noticeable as fan communities split into increasingly passionate camps. One side viewed Kyle primarily through the lens of personal loss. They saw a woman navigating the end of a decades-long marriage while simultaneously watching long-standing friendships change around her. From that perspective, her emotional reactions appeared understandable, even inevitable. Another group sympathized with Dorit. They argued that friendships don't automatically end because marriages do. They believed adults should be free to maintain respectful relationships without every interaction being interpreted as disloyalty. Still others rejected the idea that anyone involved should be labeled a hero or a villain. Instead, they viewed the entire situation as an unfortunate collision between complicated human relationships and the extraordinary pressure of reality television. Perhaps that explains why the story resonated so deeply. Almost everyone could recognize some part of themselves within it. Most people have experienced friendships changing over time. Many understand how divorce or separation can alter social circles. Others know how quickly misunderstandings can grow when communication begins breaking down. The Beverly Hills setting may be extraordinary, but the emotions underneath are remarkably familiar. Trust, disappointment, loyalty, grief, change. Those emotions exist far beyond television. They exist in ordinary families, workplaces, and friendships every day. The difference is that few people experience those moments while millions of strangers debate their decisions online. And that constant public judgment creates another layer of pressure that audiences sometimes overlook. Every interview becomes news. Every public appearance generates fresh headlines. Even choosing not to respond can become a story in itself. Public figures often find themselves defending interpretations rather than actual events. That dynamic became increasingly visible throughout the season. Rather than calming speculation, each new episode appeared to generate fresh questions. Was someone withholding information? Had conversations happened off camera that viewers would never see? Were editing choices emphasizing certain conflicts while minimizing others? Those questions may never receive definitive answers, but they kept audiences engaged week after week. Meanwhile, entertainment media closely followed every development. Podcasts devoted entire episodes to analyzing cast dynamics. Entertainment websites summarized fan reactions almost in real time. Former housewives offered their own perspectives during interviews and appearances, adding yet another layer to the ongoing conversation. The discussion had grown beyond Bravo itself. It had become part of the broader reality television culture. And as public attention intensified, another issue quietly emerged beneath the surface. The future, not just the future of individual friendships, but the future of the franchise itself. Because the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills has survived for years by reinventing itself through changing relationships. Cast members come and go. Alliances evolve. Unexpected friendships develop. Old rivalries fade, while new conflicts emerge. The show's longevity depends on constant transformation. But transformation always comes with consequences. If Kyle and Dorit's friendship had genuinely reached a point of no return, the emotional center of the series could shift dramatically. If reconciliation remained possible, viewers would likely witness one of the franchise's most anticipated redemption stories. And if neither outcome occurred, Beverly Hills might be entering an entirely new era, one where long-established dynamics no longer define the show. That uncertainty became the season's greatest source of suspense. Because for all the headlines, rumors, and online debates, one fundamental question remained unanswered. Was this simply another reality television feud destined to fade after the reunion? Or was it the beginning of a permanent change in the social landscape of Beverly Hills, one that neither the cast nor the audience fully understood yet? As the season moved closer to its most emotionally charged episodes, the conversation was no longer confined to what happened on screen. The debate had spilled into podcasts, entertainment news outlets, YouTube breakdowns, Reddit threads, and countless social media discussions. Every new interview, every promotional appearance, and every behind-the-scenes comment was scrutinized for clues that might explain what viewers believed they were witnessing. Yet, amid all the speculation, one important reality remained. There is a significant difference between what audiences can observe and what they assume. The competitor transcript repeatedly references unnamed underground leaks, production-adjacent sources, and alleged secret business arrangements involving Dorit Kemsley and Mauricio Umansky. However, those claims are not supported by publicly verifiable evidence in the transcript itself. As a result, they should be treated as unconfirmed speculation rather than established fact. Ironically, that uncertainty may explain why this storyline has captured so much attention. People are naturally drawn to unanswered questions, and Beverly Hills has always been built on unanswered questions. What happens when decades of trust begin to erode? Can friendships survive major life transitions? And once public opinion becomes part of the equation, can any relationship truly remain private? These questions resonate because they extend far beyond reality television. They touch on universal experiences. Divorce doesn't affect only two people. It reshapes families. It changes friendships. It forces mutual acquaintances into uncomfortable positions. People who once shared holidays suddenly wonder whether invitations might make someone feel excluded. Friends hesitate before making phone calls, uncertain whether they're crossing invisible boundaries. Simple decisions become emotionally complicated. That complexity is often difficult to capture on television. Episodes last less than an hour. Real emotional healing can take years. As viewers watched Kyle and Dorit navigate increasingly strained interactions, many recognized something that couldn't be edited into a dramatic montage. Neither woman appeared untouched by the situation. Kyle's emotional responses reflected someone experiencing profound personal change while living under extraordinary public scrutiny. Dorit, meanwhile, often appeared determined to explain her perspective, insisting that her actions were not intended to cause harm, even as many viewers questioned whether intentions alone were enough. The tragedy, if there is one, lies in how differently people can interpret the same events. One viewer sees compassion, another sees betrayal, a third sees producers crafting compelling television from complicated human emotions. Perhaps all three perspectives contain elements of truth. Reality television rarely offers absolute answers. Instead, it presents fragments of real lives, leaving audiences to assemble the larger picture themselves. And sometimes those pieces never fit together perfectly. As reunion conversations approached, anticipation reached another level. Fans hoped for clarity. Would lingering questions finally be answered? Would Kyle and Dorit find common ground after months of tension? Would Mauricio address the speculations surrounding his evolving friendships? Or would the reunion simply generate another wave of headlines without fully resolving the issues at the center of the season? Historically, reunions serve as moments of accountability. Cast members revisit painful moments with the benefit or burden of hindsight. Old grievances resurface. New information occasionally emerges. But reunions also reveal something else. They remind audiences that these are real people living beyond the episodes. Long after cameras stop rolling, relationships continue evolving. Families continue adjusting. Friendships either heal or quietly fade away. The reunion marks the end of a television season. It rarely marks the end of the actual story. That may be the most important lesson from this entire controversy. In an age where social media demands immediate judgments and definitive conclusions, some stories resist simple answers. Not every disagreement has a clear hero. Not every conflict has a villain. Sometimes people experience the same events from entirely different emotional realities. And sometimes both perspectives contain genuine pain. For Bravo, storylines like this demonstrate why the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills continues to captivate audiences after so many years. Luxury homes and glamorous lifestyles may attract viewers initially, but emotional authenticity, however messy or uncomfortable, keeps them invested. People don't return season after season because every friendship survives. They return because relationships evolve in unpredictable ways. They recognize parts of their own lives reflected beneath the glamour, a difficult conversation, a drifting friendship, a family navigating change. Those experiences are universal, even if the setting is Beverly Hills. As the dust settles on another unforgettable chapter, many questions remain unanswered. Will Kyle and Dorit eventually rebuild the trust they once shared? Will time soften the emotions that defined this period of their lives? Or has the franchise entered a completely new era where former alliances can never truly be restored? Only future seasons and the people living these stories can answer those questions. Until then, one thing is certain: every new appearance, every interview, and every episode will continue to be examined by millions of viewers searching for the next clue in a story that has become far bigger than a single friendship. Because in Beverly Hills, the most compelling drama isn't always about what cameras capture. Sometimes it's about everything audiences believe happened in between. If you followed this story from the beginning, share your perspective in the comments. Do you think this was an unavoidable consequence of changing lives and shifting relationships? Or do you believe the friendship crossed a line that can never be repaired? However you see it, the conversation is far from over. And if you enjoy thoughtful, fact-based deep dives into the biggest stories shaping reality television, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next investigation.